Hi, everyone. I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company. We are a new year-round digital talk series bringing you all the best creative voices across film, television, and theater. And today we are incredibly fortunate to be joined by the wonderful Latif Nasser, who is the executive producer and host of Netflix's Connected. And I wanted to start by congratulating you because we were originally supposed to talk a week ago, but you had a baby.
Yeah, as if it wasn't enough to launch a show in 1 week. It was 2 days after that we had the baby. And the baby came early. Um, but yeah, I'm still kind of I'm if I say anything totally loopy, it's because I am running on very little sleep.
And it was your second kid as well. So how is it a totally different experience going through that during pandemic right now?
Oh, it's so weird. It's so weird. It really, I mean, in a way, I guess when you have a newborn, like you're sort of shut up from the world anyway, and you're on your own time zone and in your own space. The thing that has been weird the last few days. I mean, I don't even know what a day is anymore. My 3-year-old, he's very routine and day and night, and he has nap time and bedtime, and then the newborn, he's totally confused, so he thinks day is night and night is day, and so between the two of them, it's like I don't even know what's going on. But it's I'm just really lucky there. This little guy is healthy, he seems to be thriving, and so I'm just so grateful.
That's so fantastic. Yeah, and diving into talking about your show baby,
My
you've done
show
such a
baby.
fantastic job in it. And my immediate curiosity is really about how you structured out the episodes, because you take these subjects that sometimes on paper don't sound necessarily very interesting, like we're going to
No.
clouds for 40 minutes or nuclear for 40 minutes. And the number of places that you take it literally, I feel like your mind must look like when they're trying to solve a crime and they have all these threads going between all these connected joints to figure it out. And so just really interested in how you begin that massive process of figuring out the different types of pieces of research of information that you want to pull in, what maybe doesn't fit and you need to put by the wayside because you can't find that loose connectivity, and how that all works.
Yeah, that's to me part of the fun. It's like actually starting exactly where you said. Like, it's part of the fun is starting with something that people take for granted and seems so boring and kind of mundane, like poop, or something that seems like cryptic and off-putting, like math, like a mathematical, observation, or something that seems sort of like scary and far away and like nukes, right? And so just taking something that feels like something you think something you kind of sort of take for granted in the way that you know it. And then the fun is like, how can I just blow that up? How can where are the weirdest places where I could take that? And what are the kind of, what can I do to blow it up? So one of those things, like you said, was clouds. So it's like clouds. They're the most like taken for granted thing. Like we never, they're above us all the time. We never look up at them. And just kind of just playing around. And so like, I just got excited about clouds, and I got really excited about the idea, which is so weird. I don't know why. Like there's this thing that we're also dependent on the cloud. We're all dependent on clouds. Like, what is actually the relationship between the cloud and the clouds? And that I was like, that's a weird, I don't actually know how to answer that. And then the part of the fun of it, like also part of the fun of it is like, then once you get a whole bunch of different, like a grab bag of fun, weird stories about clouds, we got some that didn't even fit in there. There was one that was so great. There was a time when there was like a server farm. I think it was like a Facebook, like a server farm building, and they messed up the AC or something, so that it actually in this cloud server building, it actually like clouds formed and rained on the machines. Anyway, whatever. So I just find a whole bunch of weird stories like that where I'm like, that's so weird, right? That's so funny and strange, and kind of mind blowing. And then the fun is like kind of like sculpting a shape out of them. So with clouds in particular, the fun of that was the idea of like, okay, I'm gonna make this in a way where I start with a cloud and end with a cloud, and in the middle I go all over the world. I go a bunch of whole different like loopy things, and then in the end I'm back to a literal cloud. So starting with a literal cloud, ending with a literal cloud, and then like everything that you do along the way, like it makes you see that Final Cloud like a whole new way. And that's just fun. Like, it's a fun game. It's like tying a knot and untying it. It's like, it's just so fun because it's just like play. It's like going on a Wikipedia jag and then trying to find yourself way back to the original article where you started.
Yeah. And in terms of the experts that you bring into the show and the interview subjects that you have, what's so wonderful about them is it's not just that they're experts in their fields. They are just as passionate about what they study and what they work in as you are to sit there and learn about it. And I was just really fascinated by the amazing people that you pulled in and what that process looks like before you're on camera, the conversations that you have beforehand to make sure that, as well as the enthusiasm, you're also going to get the pieces of information that you need from a narrative structural point as well.
Yeah. So we were so lucky that all the folks we wanted to talk to let us talk to them. We were so lucky that all the places, because we sort of we talk to them in, like, I get to talk to them in really eye-popping places, and so all those places let us go there. The gig is like, most of it is like, I think a lot of the stories I found originally, or I had a small team of really great researchers and producers, and so we kind of all found them together. And then what I would do is, like, we would get the really good story, and I'd be like, oh, my ideal would be this and this and this and this, and they'd be like, okay. Then they would go out and pre-interview those people, because the fun is you want to meet the person for the first time on camera. You want to, like, have that, like, and that's something I learned from my work in radio. Like, you want to have that, the, like, awkwardness, but also the, like, magic. Like, you don't want to actually just regurgitate a conversation you've already had. So there's a kind of a thing where where I would hold back, and I would make sure I didn't talk to them beforehand, or I didn't know them. And my producers would do a lot of that kind of pre-interview work for me. And they come back and be like, ooh, this person's a really good talker. Make sure you ask her about her daughter's wedding, or whatever it is. Right. And it's like, and that, connects to this, a whale poop in a crazy way you'd never expect, or whatever, right? And so there's a lot of kind of fun stuff like that, and it really was, like, I think a lot of the producers' work, finding those scientists who just have that spark, who, like, are so excited to talk about it, and who kind of can, like, the work they're doing is really pretty dazzling. And it got to the point by the end of when I was doing the show, because I was, like, flying all over the world, going to the most random places. Like, I'd be walking in the middle of a, state park in Delaware, or, like, the middle of the Sahara Desert or something, and you just find this, like, magical scientist who could, like, speak so beautifully about the thing they're studying. And to me, by the end of the show, it just felt like, oh my God, there are these scientists just everywhere, like, around every corner, who are able to do this, who are able to, like, who are finding out these sort of secrets, all around us, these, like, secrets in plain view. And they're just all around us. And it's like, I don't know, like, I get to talk to them. It's amazing.
Well, particularly with the scientists that you involved in, and saying that, obviously they were pre-interviewed, but you're having that first conversation, so it could technically go anywhere. Did that cause any of the narrative threads that you were putting together to kind of really evolve in ways that none of you had anticipated or seen coming?
Yeah, definitely. There were a lot of moments, and it's so funny because the whole show, like when we, like, at the beginning, it's actually quite technical in the way that, there's 6 stories strung together, and so this one has to feed into that one, because we've already shot that one. So how are we going to do this to that? Like if that doesn't work, like, that connection, it's like acrobats in midair. Like if that doesn't work, like, we're in trouble. But sometimes they didn't, and we would have to like reshuffle and rejigger a lot of things around, which we often had to do with a number of stories. But there were times, one that I still kind of like, it just worked out in a funny way. There was a moment where I was talking to, it was for the poop episode, for the London kind of drug poop thing. And I really legitimately did not know it. And it was occurring to me in real time. And I was like, what would be the most interesting way to apply this? And I was like, could you look at antidepressant use post-Brexit to see, like, what like psychic, toll this conversation has had on Londoners? And he was like, you read my mind. Like, I already did that. And, like, if that was not if that was a staged conversation, that wouldn't have happened, because I stepped on his reveal, which I still feel dumb that I did, but only because I didn't know that was genuinely what he was studying, which was so cool.
Yeah. And did you go into the beginning of making each episode also knowing which were the aspects that where you were going to do off-camera narration and have graphic overlays and all of that sort of stuff? Or did that really come after you had the information that was happening on screen?
Yeah, it was a really dynamic. It's like it was like the puzzle of making this show. Like the showrunner I was lucky enough to have, Dave Metler. He really, like, it was a 9-dimensional puzzle. Like, because it would be like, okay, this access that we thought we had to this Dutch ship in the middle of the ocean, all of a sudden that access fell through. So now actually that's going to have to be animated, and we're going to have to, this other segment that was right after that was going to have to be animated. Now we're going to have to go to this other place in, I don't know what, like in Estonia or wherever, to be like, okay, now that can't be animated, so we got to do that. So it was like there was just so many logistical things that were just like constantly in flux, and just the fact that we were able to like string together any of these episodes is sort of a small miracle. And so many different people, like just so much creative logistics. I've never seen. It felt like I was like we were making the Olympics or something.
And in terms of the way that you present information, obviously, you know, you have a fully fledged understanding of narrative structure and how to present knowledge and information to audiences. And you've mentioned that with this show in particular, that there were a lot of things that you came with already in your toolkit in terms of documentary storytelling, but that there were aspects that you had to learn and think about differently. And I was curious what those two things were, like what the things were that you already felt so comfortable with, and then what the learning curves were for you.
I think the stuff that I came in that I knew, the stuff that I came in with from radio and I knew is like the kind of, I think the basic science journalist toolkit. Like it's like, so there's the basic scientist journalist toolkit, which is like, okay, here's how to explain a complicated thing. Here's what you have to do. You have to kind of meet among the things you have to do. You have to meet the viewer with what they think they know. And then sometimes you have to unravel that. And then you have to kind of, maybe then what you do is you sort of plant a question to be like, oh, okay, why is this the way that it is? And then you kind of like, so there's like just scientific, like, here's how to break down complex information, make people actually care about stuff that seems pretty dry and technical. That's sort of one level. Another thing that I feel like Radiolab is really, and radio work has really trained me to do. And in fact, also like I was schooled in theater. I trained in theater, and the kind of the idea of just the storytelling idea of plot, of character, of a main character going on an emotional journey, you know, of learning something along the way that feels like it sort of unlocks some kind of emotional arc, you know, like those kinds of things, plot twists, like those sorts of things that are like actually dramatic in the dramatist's toolkit, I guess. I feel like I have some of those. And so those things I kind of came in with. But the TV stuff, like I really feel like I learned to see. Like I learned to see totally fresh. In radio, like I'm never thinking about what's this room going to look like, where should we shoot it from, what kind of coverage do we need, what sort of B-roll do we need, who, like, if there's some kind of demo that we're doing, who should be doing? Should it be me doing it? Should it be the scientist I'm talking to? Should it be another colleague of that scientist? Should it be like, what kind of coverage do we need? Where, how, when, how much? Especially when you are, and this is like, my radio interviews, like I'm content, like I'll just, like kind of the way we're doing right now, it's like just two people now on a Zoom, but used to be in a studio, and you just sit and gab for a while, and it's fun, like it's a conversation, and whereas this is not that. When you're interviewing people for TV, it's like, okay, we have this location for an hour, but the sun's going down, so we're going to lose the sun in 15 minutes. This person, you know, they were flying in too for this interview, so their plane was actually a little bit late. So we're only going to have, you know, actually 7 minutes to do this interview. So you have to meet the person and do the thing, and so it's like all this other stuff, and it's like, oh, and we need this shot and this shot, so we need that before we do this and this. So none of that did I know. I knew none of that. And like now it feels like I'm it's a whole new kind of it's a whole nother layer of complexity actually, but it's fun. It's kind of I mean, I don't know, it's one of those things where it's like you know, new constraints, like it just makes you rub up against them in different ways and kind of like find new clever things around them. And yeah, I hope it worked out, but I think it's like still trying to develop those tricks, you know?
Yeah, because you were mentioning that idea of within science journalism, obviously you're having to take sometimes very complex ideas and really break them down in knowledgeable ways. And you're approaching audiences who are scientists themselves, but also people who are coming into this for the first time, which is so fascinating. And when you were kind of, especially first starting out in this field, was that something where you would kind of take a step back and look at the information and kind of look at it through different lenses, really keeping the audience in mind? And if so, do you still do that, or is it more just second nature at this point?
No, I mean, it's funny. Like, I actually think about the audience a lot less than you would expect. Like, I think for me, it's just like I have a thick skull. Like, I need things explained to me very simply and tangibly. Like, otherwise, I don't get it, and I need to get it. So for me, it's like I just bang my head against this thing until I get it, and then I explain it in the way that I get it. So like the in the clouds episode, like this guy was this guy was just explaining to me, this guy in this scientist in Texas, about, clouds and drought and what's causing the drought. And I was like, just trying to get it. I was trying to get it. And it's complicated. Clouds are actually very complicated. And I was like, okay, so is it like the cloud is constipated? Like, is that the thing, and like it's like using analogies, using kind of like trying to, and also graphics really helped with this a lot, like trying to break things down to a degree that I got it. Because if I get it, and I want to make sure I'm getting it right, I'm not like bastardizing it, but if I get it, then to me, I hope that's the way everybody else can get it too.
Yeah. And in terms of when you're delivering that information straight to camera, I think there's such an interesting art form to hosting and presenting in and of itself. And is that something where you think of it as a performance? Do you have anything that you do in terms of preparing with the lines that you have with the script before, or do you prefer a little bit of a looser off the cuff presentation with it?
Well, I prefer, I think I tend to prefer the looser off the cuff, and I don't really prepare that much. But in this case, it was funny because the narration segments, speaking of that kind of crazy 10-dimensional puzzle, in a lot of cases, we were recording that before we recorded the segments. So like, because we had to go to the Amazon on this date or at NASA on this date, yeah, we had to like be like, okay, I'm going to tell you about this whole episode, even though I haven't like visited and reported. And because I don't know ahead of time what I'm going to talk to these people about, like I had to kind of, in a very loose, vague way, like sort of sketch out like what do I think I'm going to find there, or what based on the pre-reporting I've done or reading the person's paper, as opposed to meeting them or whatever. So it was a kind of a weird, it almost in a way had to be a little bit looser because I just didn't even know. Like it would be like, okay, we're either doing this segment or this segment next. So I'm just going to narrate both of them and see what happens. So it was a kind of, that like usually I think in most sort of documentaries like this, like they do those like host, like I guess they maybe you know better than me, I think they call them master interviews. Like they do those like main narration interviews in like a studio, right? So then if you mess it up, then you can just go right back into the studio and fix it, right? But what we did, and it's part of the gimmick in a way of the show, and it's the thing that I just love, like it was an idea we had early on, which is like, let's record all the narration for the whole episode from the last location. And so in the end, like, so you have this kind of narration, and then in a way you like break out of it at the end. And then that's where you're reporting the last story from. Like you've been sitting there all along. And the fun of that, we hope, I mean, I don't know if it actually registers in this way to people, but like the hope is that when you see, maybe the first time you're sort of surprised by it, but then the subsequent times you're like, where is he? How are we going to get there from here? It's like a little bit of a puzzle. And but then that meant this really complicated thing where I couldn't just go into a studio and re-record. Like I had to record the whole narration, even sometimes before knowing what I was actually gonna say and find. But that presented its own kind of challenges. But it also was really fun. That's so fascinating. And
kind of going back to the way that you present the scientific information a little bit more as well, one of the things that's so great is you're not just going in there and saying, oh, nuclear is like inherently good or inherently bad. You really do such a fantastic job at capturing that balanced argument, and you're not even necessarily giving a perspective to the audience at the end of the day. You're just giving them more information. And was that a really conscious decision from the get-go that was an important aspect for you to have within the show?
Yeah, there were kind of two dimensions to that. One was that I think that I really wanted, because I do think that there's something powerful about that. It makes the show better for the show to be able to contain a full spectrum of emotions, you know?
Yeah.
So you want to be able to watch it and laugh. You want to be able to watch it and like laugh at poop jokes, but you also want to be able to watch it and be like, wow, oh my God, I'm hearing from a atomic bomb survivor, you know? And that's like a really moving, it was for me, it was a very moving thing. And to me, to be able to have that whole emotional spectrum, I think it just makes the thing stronger. That was one, and we kind of from the very beginning, it was like, I don't want this just to be a whiz-bang Nito science show. Like I want it to be, like it's not just Nito factoid, Nito factoid, Nito factoid. I want it to be like, oh wow, this is actually touching me in a way that I don't know that most science shows do, you know? And then kind of the other dimension of that is that I really do think, and there are some science shows out there that definitely do this, but there are a lot of like nonfiction shows out there that just, I think, don't give the viewer like any credit, you know? It's like you go to a restaurant and the chef like literally digested all the food for you and is like giving you a plate of pre-digested food. Like, I don't want that. I don't want that as a viewer. And I think that viewers can kind of suss out and make up their own minds and have their own feelings and can hold in their heads at the same time, wait, nukes are bad. We don't want them. And yet, look at these things, these kind of surprising bumper crop of things we learned. But I still don't want nukes, but it's still kind of interesting to know that. Or same with surveillance. Like, it's like, wow, there's all these things. Like, what does it mean to look at it from this other way that I'm used to looking at it? And that doesn't mean I'm an apologist. That doesn't mean I'm like trying to say, great, rah, 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 surveillance or rah, 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 nukes. Like, nobody is obviously trying to say that. But I think it's like trying to give the viewer more credit. Like, it's like, look, you're a person. You know what it's like to process multiple thoughts or emotions at the same time, and you can do that. And it's like giving them credit to do that. I think, because that's what I want as a viewer. So I feel like hopefully that's something I can pass on to my viewers.
Yeah. Well, we're also living at a time right now where science is being challenged and being questioned, and it's being said that science isn't truthful. And the tricky thing as well is that science is evolving day by day. So are you really hoping that through doing that this show contributes to that conversation in a positive way and can really help as a rebuttal to that?
Yeah, I think it's like, I see so much of the kind of anti-science mood right now as a kind of, it's so much an anti-authority move. It's like, don't tell me what to do. Don't take away my freedom. And I think, to me, the way that, and I mean, I have that too. I think a lot of us have that. Like, nobody wants to be told what to do. And I get that. But to me, I think the way to get around that, the way that I even get around that is to actually like kind of look over the shoulder of these people, of these scientists. And what you see is like, they don't have all the answers. It's like, a lot of these are cosmic mysteries. Like, we still don't know so much about COVID, right? What we don't know about COVID is way more than what we know about COVID. But that said, like, these people are good faith actors who are trying their best, who don't know a lot, sure, but they do know a lot too. And they have a lot to say, and they are like, they're doing their best. And I think trying to shift it to say, oh, it's not like, I'm bringing these tablets from on high and I'm going to tell you what to do. It's like, look, like we're trying our best to figure this out. This is a dynamic situation. This is the best we can figure. So here, like, use this. It'll help you. I think that's a different way than like, wear a mask until the day you're dead. Like, it's a different feeling. It registers in a different way.
Yeah, well, it's such a fantastic show, and I feel like it came out at the perfect time where we need to be thinking about the connectivity and how everything is linked together. I mean, the entire world is going through the shared experience right now, and so thank you so much for talking so in depth about it. It's fascinating.
Thank you. Yeah, it was it is kind of ironic, but also not at all ironic timing. Like it does feel like this show, it's like at the same time right now, it's like, oh no, duh, we're all connected. But at the same time, it's like, no, it's not just scary, deadly stuff that's connecting us. It's like beautiful, poetic, like just surprising, weird stuff that's connecting us too. And that's the kind of the fun thing that I really wanted to shine a light on, and the people who are really kind of in the trenches figuring all that out.
Yeah, no, it's exactly like you said with the show. You have the good and you have the bad connectivity.
Yeah, it's exactly right. The one of the things we in a Radiolab segment that I was working on, like there was this thing about how historically pandemics and epidemics are related to the diffusion of knowledge, right? Like you could think of the way that scientists are all working together on COVID or like things like that. But like in a way for this show, it's literally specifically true. Like in the way that this epidemic has spread to all these places, has made us all lock ourselves in our houses or in our countries or whatever, at home. And the thing we're now doing is more than usual is streaming, is binging shows, and hopefully my show will be one of those shows that people do that for. And it's like it's cool because it's like those two connections, that the bad and the good, they're themselves connected, and it's like it's really, I don't know, there's something profound about that. I find that very profound.
Yeah, no, it truly is. And for anyone watching, the entire season is up on Netflix, so you can catch the entire thing. And thank you so much, Latif.
Thank you so much for having me. Really my pleasure.